And so the creations which stem from our mind into a three-dimensional universe must take time and must unfold in an orderly manner. But not a disorderly one, not an experimental one. The tree throwing a limb on one side does not experiment by trying to throw a lot more on that side because it would unbalance it. The balance of nature gives to the tree the form that it should have to keep its balance, to keep the stresses and the strains that would otherwise tear at the trunk of the tree, to keep them balanced so that there's an even thrust of gravity on the trunk of the tree and to the earth. The same thing would apply to a man trying to stand. He leans and he is aware of the fact that he's leaned, and he comes back again into balance. An unawareness of his body, because his body is in balance. Now when anyone creates anything, he must be unaware of his body, not draw upon the evidence of his senses, not experiment, but conceive and know an idea and then think it into parts. And then, when thinking it into parts, the instincts of his body that had given him his technique from much practice, the instincts would make his body work automatically, and he still forgets his body. And the more he can forget his body and not draw upon the evidence of his senses or reasoning, other than the fact that they have there is a storehouse of memories and experiences of what he has done before, and the brain must dominate the body so electrically, because all of its ganglions, it's the one ganglion of all of its ganglions. But the body, if kept in balance constantly, and a complete awareness of the mind, so that the body is as automatic in its action as the hammer is unaware of the fact that it's driving a nail. That's the condition for the creative genius to become. To be wholly mind, commanding an automatic body. To be wholly mind is to create a body in perfection of balance, to unfold it in a masterly manner. And that applies to everything that man creates, whether he's going to build a factory or start a little street-side emporium, or to write a story, compose anything, or paint a picture. It's the most important thing that we can tell you. It's the most important practical thing that I can tell you with having the experience I've had of a lifetime from 7 years of age, to try to pass that on to you as the reason, as the answer to the question when people ask me, how can you do so much in one lifetime? To try to tell it to you and have you do likewise is the most valuable thing I can possibly do to you. A profession like that of the doctor, where so much of the happiness of human life is dependent upon, can be multiplied in power over and over and over again that way. That there are a strong temptation of any profession of man, such as a lawyer or a doctor, the strong temptation to try to, or to go to his books, to go to his teachings, to go to his experiments. The strongest possible kind of a temptation is with him always. I find that among the doctors I know, that when they set that up on a bookshelf, as they do their books and forget them, and then meditate upon them, They come back with that which was information and experience in them becoming a part of their soul pattern. And out of them comes more than the wisdom and more advancement and more result than they would get in years of reading more and more books, more and more experiments. I tell you this instead of answering these questions because it is the one thing which I feel as though I should make the greatest effort to have you so thoroughly understand, so that you do not go beyond that which the machine, which is your body, should go in the creation of anything. It is a machine which is geared to stresses and strains that will just stand so much. Very complicated machine. I was amazed when Dr. Nimmo told us yesterday that there was 150,000 separate parts and enzymes and various other things in even a little corpuscle like a white corpuscle of our body. I was amazed when another student, you know, I think, Dr. Sutherland of California, who lectures all over the country, cranial specialist, and teaches students from all over the country. And he always comes here to spend a few days with us, as perhaps one of the very few of the private students I have. He has never come to the class. But he has solved problems because of communion here with us, and he's passing them on all over the country to his students. And so I say the machine of the body that I was talking about will stand there so much. And Dr. Sutherland, by the way, said that between one gland and another, say, I think the pituitary gland and another, there's a little tube about the size of a straw that you sip up sundaes with and ice cream sodas with. And in that straw, in that little tube, are 40,000 other tubes, all insulated from each other. And in those 40,000 tubes are separate intercommunications from the pituitary gland to something else. 40,000 of them. Think of it, if one of those got out of order. Think of the being able the Creator to being able to put 40,000 little separate telegraph wires in so small a place to serve in the capacity of messengers, sending messages from one place to another. Think of the wonder of these units of corpuscles that make up a body anyway, so that there can be 150,000 ultramicroscopic parts into a microscopic one. That body will work in utter forgetfulness of all of those parts if it's kept in balance. And if one works from mind alone and can forget that body, that complicated body that's doing so many things, the body will work perfectly and do that which the mind tells it. But I say, or at least it's been my experience, that when I have desired a concept, a series of concentrations and decentrations of building that concept up and unfolding into a body, the body will take of it an endurance of about 2 hours. Then the body will begin to say things. The body will say, I'm tired, or sit me down, or do something. And I just have to listen to that body talking that way. And as soon as I have to begin to listen to my body, then it's just like scratching yourself with a pen. You couldn't possibly compose a symphony while you're doing that. The body is demanding something. So then the thing to do is to stop Go take a walk, do something else. I've often, at such a time, sat down at the piano for 15 or 20 minutes, immediately go at something else for another 2 hours and do just as good work. Then perhaps take a walk or a nap, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and utterly change. Another concept, and the joy of that other concept. One's born again will be just the joy of working at another medium, another concept, something else. And to do that 5 times in a day, I've done it for many, many years. Change from one thing to another. And each must be equally good. Literature, music, painting, sculpture. I've designed $80 million worth of buildings. Well, all of it's done in between times. There has never been a steady employment in all of my life of any one thing. I painted children's portraits for years, one sitting every morning from, say, 10 to 12. The work of the day was finished. Why waste the rest of it? Don't talk to God about it. New concept, new inspiration, new joy, new medium to work in. Man multiplies his own power to the extent of his ability to become aware of the source of that power and create things in a masterly way. No matter what he comes up against in hurdles, we're in a maelstrom. We're not independent units of life. We're in a maelstrom of an environment made up of our own kind. We have to have dealings with our own kind. Our dealings are the results of our works or our efforts, sometimes dependent upon the cooperation or lack of it of others. Also upon the conditions of an environment, a city, or a nation as a whole. You may be in the midst of a very big thing, war starts. Everything is affected by it. You may be in the midst of a conception of something that you wish to do, I was once in the midst of building 3 buildings in New York City. One of them next to you, Mr. Marjolis, Alvin Court was one of them. One of them was up in Museum of Natural History, right opposite that, Natural History. And one of them was in Lexington Avenue. The panic of 1929 came upon us. I had just conquered a quicksand that was discovered up there. A quicksand that had required a fortune of over $100,000 put down into it to conquer it, and then a limestorm broke. The plumbers had opened a sewer that day. Oh, these were not actions of mine. These were actions of people upon whom a project of mine depended for cooperation. We are all of us the victims or the inheritors of the good and the victims of the not good things that are happening. So the plumbers had opened the sewer cut that day in that street. It's 12 feet high. Limestone broke and swirled all of that $100,000 worth of footings from out of that place. And then the panic broke, and some $300,000 or $400,000 of my hard-earned money went up in smoke. Well, what of it? It is an adventure in time and space. It's an experience in time and space. It's a good experience. It did not prevent the concept from coming into being because I finished all 3 of those buildings. They're there. The loss was mine, no one's else. But it wasn't a loss.